Well, hey, I wanted to say welcome to everybody that's on. Appreciate everybody hopping on here, and may get a couple more to join as the evening goes on. But real excited to kick off tonight and close out calendar year 24 and posture and get ready for calendar year 25. So wanted to use this evening to introduce and kind of re-engage on what the purpose is here and kind of advertise again what we're trying to do and how we're trying to help our community. You can tell by the diverse audience here. We've got individuals that are already out and been out and kind of made the transition. We've got individuals that are still in the process, and we've got individuals that are still in and kind of deciding where they're at. And that's the perfect gathering of individuals and the perfect gathering of a network, because you have people who aren't sure whether they should start their transition process. You've got people that are in it but have questions about it. You've got people that have been through it at different levels. Some haven't been out for over a year. Some haven't just got out. And really that's the idea behind the virtual happy hour. So we're going to talk a little bit about that purpose, spreading the word, what we accomplished and what we did in 24, get some feedback from individuals on the call and what was helpful, wasn't, and then share some of our vision for 25 and going forward. So before I get started, anybody from the IDP team have anything to add or any opening comments for the rest of the group? Drew, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a heads up, everyone. This meeting is recorded, so we'll save some stuff till the end where we can just do small talk and talking crap about other people. But we're recording it so that we can share this info with other people too. And if you want a recording or you want to share it with anyone, just let us know. We'll get it out to you.
Yeah, great point, Drew. Thanks for bringing up the disclaimer about the recording. So yeah, it's going to serve multiple purposes. The recording in the end, it's going to help us come closer to achieving our objectives. And for instances like this, when we have very informational topics, you can see the invite list is up to 64. And sometimes we only get 20 or so folks on here. We want to be able to share the information with those who don't get the chance to join. So that's part of the development of this program, is we're going to have a repository of these recordings and topics so people can go back and see whatever they missed. Lou, I saw your hand go up as well.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that was one of them. And the second one was, I think kind of like to echo what Jim had mentioned earlier before, the remaining personnel jumped on as we're closing out this 24, I just want to start off by saying thank you for everyone who's been supporting IDP throughout 2024 as we started to, as we really kicked off our operations and our support to multiple partners, and just really glad that this has continued to be a platform of interest, and that people have attended, and so we really appreciate it and hope that we can continue this and even stronger in 2025.
Yeah, thanks, Lou. And that's a great segue. Like you said, we really want to take this forward in 25. So as Lou said and expressed, we appreciate everybody that's been on over the course of 24. People who have participated, spoke at one of the sessions, and those of you that have helped spread the word. Like I said, our invite list has grown exponentially, and our participation has stayed pretty steady. From month to month, we get some new faces that pop up, and then not everyone's obviously able to make it every month. But what we really want to do is push for 25 to try to expand our reach for who we're getting the word out to and who can benefit from this. So you can tell by looking at the group, a lot of us know each other. A lot of us came up in the financial management community. And, most of us have been in the Marine Corps, but we want to kind of emphasize that idea that, this is something to help individuals transition. And the normal disclaimer that we usually throw at the beginning, one, we kind of talk about the recording part of this, but then we always say, hey, look, this is not about recruiting for IDP. It's not about selling IDP. It's not about winning business. This is the community engagement side of it. Haven't been through the process, haven't been through the transition. We kind of often talk about and highlight that imbalance, right? Whether you went to OCS or boot camp, TBS or MCT, whatever your accession was, it was anywhere from months to years, 12 to 18 months possibly of learning to become a Marine and learning your job. And then when you're on your way out the door, they're like, hey, here's 5 days of TRS. Hopefully you did the rest of it on your own. So we're building that network to help overcome that imbalance. So we're pushing for early engagement, right? Reach individuals that are starting to think about or decide if they should transition, whether it's getting out after 4 years or getting out after 20 years. So whether it's, EAS or retirement, we want to help them, navigate the transition process itself and then hopefully find out what they want to do afterwards. So we'll talk a little bit about that, some of the things we've done in 24 and some of the individuals we've helped. And then we'll talk about where we want to go in 25 and then open discussion at the end, right? So first slide, I like some of you are probably familiar with the planning process or using the framework of purpose, method, end state, right? I think I learned that in the Marine Corps. But I like it, and it's streamlined and it's definitive and it's concise. So take a shot here, kind of just outlining what I just talked about, right? The purpose is to provide a community for transitioning and transition service members to overcome the accession imbalance, right? It's daunting. The idea of transitioning, what do I do? And I've talked to many of you individually and many of you have shared stories on this group regarding the anxiety, the nervousness, whatever it has, the lack of information, and how do you get more information? How do you find other people that have been through what you want to, right? So that's what we're trying to do here. The purpose is to help individuals with the transition and wherever they might end up. Whether it's going contractor, whether it's going GS, whether it's completely leaving the defense sector and the FM industry, we're just trying to help people, individuals get through that process. And it's interesting. And Yasser, I'm glad you're on here. Like Paul and some other individuals that are in the civilian workforce now or been out for a long time, because while we're really emphasizing that transitioning service member part, it can be anybody that's in a career transition, whether you leaving one company and going to another and you want to find out more about the network within this community, it's open to anybody that's going through some type of career transition like that could use the resources. So while we're talking about the purpose and reach and things like that, a lot of you that are on the call tonight have been on, multiple times since the beginning. Jake, wanted to acknowledge, you did a really great part when you talked about your experience in hiring our heroes and different fellowships. That's the exact kind of thing that we want to re-engage in 25 and have some type of cyclical pattern where, here's the major steps and major decisions as you go through. So, one, just wanted to say thanks again for being a part of that and use that as an example, right? That's one of the tough decisions individuals have to make. Hey, should I go skill bridge? Should I go hiring our heroes? What's the difference between a direct skill bridge and going through an umbrella company like that? Jake, again, thanks for hopping on, and just kind of touch base and see how things have gone, to update individuals how you've been successful, because I think when you did come on and talk about that, you were just rounding that out. And it ended up, you found a really, the right job for you, the right place, gave you the freedom, the flexibility you wanted to get up at your house out there. So if you don't mind real quick and just kind of talk and give a quick update to the group, your experience, going through that, and then how it ended up for you, because I think you interned with one company, but ended up with another one.
Yeah. So, so I appreciate this. And Jim helped me a lot, just bouncing ideas off the people that last year I was in. And so, if you haven't heard me before or I don't know you, my retirement was official on November 1st. And so I'm very new to this process. So if you got any questions for me, I tell everybody my way is not the only way, but this is what I did and it worked for me. It's kind of how I sell it to people. Everybody has to do their own thing. So, I retired out of Hawaii, which brings a couple logistical challenges to it because you plan on coming back to the mainland. So ended up hiring our heroes. At the time, I was able to do the full skill bridge. I know the Marine Corps changed the more admin some. So I was able to do 12 weeks of skill bridge. And then I think it was 30 days of PTAD. And then I had 74 days of terminal leave or around there. I can't remember now. It was a lot. Things worked out perfect for me. I left Hawaii 180 days early. The hiring our heroes thing was a good process. I did what was called as a direct match with a company. So I didn't do the speed dating with the resumes. I found a company that had a job that I thought I would like in the geographical location I wanted to live. So geographical location was the most important thing to me. So, so I found a company, matched with them, worked with them, and it was not hard work, but it was pretty, I worked 8 hours a day from May until July with them. Got a job offer, nice folks. But I was interviewing for other jobs. And Logistics Management Institute, if you've heard of them, they're a smaller company, but they're a pretty well-known consulting firm out at Tyson's Corner. I had interviewed with them back in May, late May, and they had offered me a job, but they didn't offer me a start date because it was, subject of a background investigation, this and that. So, ended up going and working with Logistics Management Institute in September. I've been there since September 9th. Kind of hit the dollar amount I wanted, fully remote, working from Des Moines. I started off working in for the Office of Secretary of Defense, doing like acquisition policy. That's another thing. So I'm a 3404, but I've kind of chosen to go the contracting officer route. I did about 10 or 12 years as a contracting officer, and retired as a contracting officer out of Hawaii. So that was the freshest skill set. So anyway, acquisition policy, Office of Secretary of Defense. They came to me like late October, early November, because you can't do any client facing as an officer retiring until after you've gone past your EAS. So they come to me like November, and they're like, "Hey, we got this other contract doing IT procurement. We'd like to move you to. You don't have to do it, but they kind of." I did feel pressure to do it, but I think that was just me being used to the Marine Corps. But I think they really were kind of giving me the choice. But I wasn't doing a lot of work with the other job. And I was like, sure, I'll do something different. And met with their KO, or their retired KO, their acquisition team. So the acquisition team I'm working on is really good. And the other contractors on the team are really good. The government agency I'm working for and supporting, not so much. And so I'm kind of frustrated now because I'm not doing a lot of work, and I would like to be doing more work, and I'm just kind of sitting and waiting. And now as a contractor, I have to sit back and I can kind of advise you and show you something. And if you don't do anything with it, I just sit here and twiddle my thumbs, So, so in the future, whether it's 6 months from now, whether it's 3 months from now, I do want to start like a little LLC of my own, probably start doing some 1099 work. But I don't know. We'll see. That's kind of where I'm at now. I don't want to take over the meeting, but that's my update. So Merry Christmas.
No, Jake, man, it's perfect. I appreciate you taking up the time. And it's great to hear the update. It's great to hear a good news story, getting what you want. And you did bring up some interesting points too, that are things that need to be discussed in the future as we get into, our topics and our cycle for 25. And also, as you and I have discussed, you have all the resources that IDP and this team can provide when you do go down the road for LLC. We've got some experience. We've been through it as a team. We got a lot to offer as far as some helping hands in navigating that process. So please, engage when you're ready to do that. So
I do want to add to, I got my VA rating. I've done that process. If you're going through it, I just learned this yesterday. So when I did my rating, I got my individual rating, but they rate you as a veteran. So I need to get my wife and kids added on there. I have 5 kids, right? So that's a little bit of money. But
yeah.
So I did a dependent ad in early November 4th, and it hasn't moved, from then until now. I got some call from the VA yesterday. They call it like I don't know what it's called. I wrote it down. Solid Start program, where they call and they touch base with veterans like 3 times in the year you're out. And he just asked me if I had any questions, and I mentioned that. And he's like, "Hey, we actually have an automated system for dependent ad, and we did it right here on the computer, and it went from step 1 to step 4 instantly. And step 4 is the decision's been made." And so I think it hit their social securities, it hit my wife's social security, and now the dependent ad is right away. So if you all run into that, understand there's this automated system. He's got to ask for it. I didn't know about it. So anyway, maybe a tidbit to help somebody.
No, that's good. That's a good anecdotal example there of a potential issue. The one that happened with me was just the resubmitting the DD 214. I was sitting there like, wait, this has been made, and then I thought the VSO had submitted, and that's crazy that your dependents weren't added. So that's a good note, right? Because that is a lot of money, especially when you got a whole fleet of kids over there. So
right.
No, that's good. And thanks for sharing it. And I wanted to say thanks, not just for being a part of the program and participating early and often, but also the referrals. I know you've brought a couple of people on and connected us with other people, and that's what it's about, spreading the network there. So yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. And you touched on something when you said the downtime, right? So that's something that we've had to talk to our own internal IDP employees about, coming off of high op tempo lifestyle that we're all used to as Marines, right? Or even as contractors. Yasha, you probably are familiar with this. One contract, you're slammed, and then the next contract, you're like, well, I'm here to advise, but you're not utilizing me. And for some of the people on our team, we had to kind of talk through that. Like, look, you have to be available 8 hours a day as a consultant. You might not be slammed 8 hours a day, right? But so I know we've experienced that even in our own company. So that's a reality, right? And it's not easy to process mentally when you're used to operating at the tempo that most of us have operated at as Marines, right? So
yeah, I mean, realistically, I'm not working more than 3 hours a day, and that includes like sitting in boring Teams meetings where nothing happens. Like, as far as like writing and doing my job, it's not much. So
no, it's a good that's a good point. It's something that we'll add to expectations and stuff and discussions later on. Does anybody got any other questions for Jake or anything to add or add onto that subject? All right, and Roy, I got your question. You're like, which contract? Because we know it's not yours, bud. Roy doesn't have downtime where he's at. That doesn't exist over there. All right. So cool. No, and I want to do that at that time to kind of highlight again the purpose, spreading the word. Jake was early in there, and some of the others on this call, Evan, we'll get around to discuss some of that. Now, method is the next thing that I want to talk about, because that's something that we're going to try to refine a little bit. Admittedly, going into this, we started in 23. We tried to formalize a little bit in 24 and get some other individuals participating. And so what we're leaning towards for 25, being a little bit more deliberate and intentional with the planning. We're going to meet one time a month like we have. And we're going to try to do 6 months cycles, because some people enter the transition pipeline at different times, right? So we don't want someone coming in and dropping their Appendix J in the summer and feeling like, oh, they missed everything that we covered in January. So we're going to try to come back and talk about subjects again. We're going to continue to seek input from everybody on the call on what do you want to know. We got some really good feedback on the November call. Took that into consideration. You'll see some of that added into our 25 schedule when we get there. But the other thing that I want to highlight is the second bullet under method, and that's really the network of resources. The network and the resources are available all month. Drew, I hate to put you on the spot, but I know you like being put on the spot. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the vision for really maturing this, setting up that Discord type server, the website and engagement and all that, Drew?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting off first, we're going to go through a website overhaul at IDP, and we're going to dedicate one section to the community. So it's going to be nothing about IDP work or business. It's just going to be a resources page. So we're going to have links to the previous recordings. So if you want to go through the library and catch one of the events from back in March, that'll be available to you. And we're going to plug in a bunch of resources. So we have like a bunch of stuff on checklists for transition, better than what you get in TRS. If you're looking for different worksheets or budgets or information on hiring our heroes, different VA stuff, and even just some state-specific stuff. So we're going to put all the resources out there. So open source, anybody can come get it. It's just all in one spot, super simple. Future state is going to look, and this is thought, and since we're open to the community, you guys have input. So if you have good ideas or good experiences with stuff, but we're thinking something like a Discord, so you can have open channels. People need to jump in and work on, I'm getting my MBA. Should I use VRE or should I use my GI Bill? Cool. Let's have an open discussion on that. Ping in there or just drop comments. So it'll be super open forum, community driven, everything from education to moving, healthcare, life insurance, random topics. And that's kind of the vision, just all community led, and make it valuable resource so people can go get what they need in one spot.
Awesome. Thanks, Drew. Yeah. And one of the most important things Drew said is, all this brain power here to get gathered together is better than any one of us alone, or even just what IDP has in house. So we want to hear from you guys, especially those of you like Dave, Brandon, Mike, some of you that are still in service and around Marines, and people that, the ones that are going to be the beneficiaries of this. If you're hearing new trends or identifying new gaps in the transition process, and those of us that have been through it very recently, using our own personal experiences to make it better. So always open to suggestions. And really the best part of it is we do this once a month to get familiar with each other. Really. It's like, oh yeah, like I saw him on there. He talked. I didn't know him that well, but it builds that familiarity and that comfort level that, okay, hey, you know what? I remember last month that guy Paul Landers talked about being employed by local government. I really want to hear more about that. Now, once we have the server and the website and everything set up, the resources are available all month long. So it's not just, this one Thursday a month and I missed it. No, now I got to wait till next month. We're going to get the information out there. The recording, like we've already said, is going to enhance the availability of information. And really that leads us to the end state where we've got this established community, like I mentioned at the beginning, participants return and serve as resources for the next cycle, right? And I think we're all cut from the same thread where, it's always great to give back and to share your story and your experience and help somebody going through it, right? Help the next person through. So any questions or anything that I left out from my team? So open here for a couple of minutes. Any further discussion on the purpose of this program, how we're going to implement it, or the desired end state? All right, cool. So we're going to take a quick little look back. We're going to reminisce a little bit at what we did in 24. So for IDP, it was an exciting ride. We got started and just had a couple of us brainstorming and complaining about what a pain in the ass the transition process was. And we're like, this could be better. Like, why don't we do something about it? Why don't we use some of the resources we're going to generate from this work that we're doing, from the client that we're serving, because now we can give back to the clients that we're serving, right? And we can say, hey, let's help people transition. So we started off and we were like struggling for ideas. And again, like I said, we got individuals on early. Jake came on early, helped us develop topics, wanted to talk about his experience. Another individual we had on early was Alan Solis. He's not on right now, but I wanted to publicly, thank him for being on. And he shared a story about his approach to retirement, where it was very different than some of ours. He took a long sabbatical and traveled and did some self-discovery and some reflection, made sure he really ended up in the right spot that he wanted. And those were the early months, the January, February, the open discussion you see there. In March, we didn't have we didn't have the happy hour, but we talked about the NCR PDI. We participated in that. So that was a highlight for IDP to go out there. And really, we're going to also try as a program here, once we get this IDP's transition program solidified, we're going to also start engaging other entities like SDFM at the PDIs and try to get some more exposure there, maybe get some sponsorship and some resources from them, right? Because they have a really wide reach, might help us with some other, with increasing our reach and our exposure. But then you can kind of see, as we got into the second half of the year, we kind of got dialed in and we put some organization to it. And so we're really going to build on that momentum. In August, we talked about labor market trends. We thought that was important to discuss some of the things that are happening in the market, right? As far as salary ranges, remote versus telework versus hybrid, and what the market looks like. And then we set it up, and I really liked the last couple of topics we did because we looked at other options, right? So one thing that I said at the beginning is this isn't about getting people to come to IDP. We just want to help individuals understand what the market looks like for a Marine, a service member, particularly a financial manager, somebody in that resource management pipeline. And so we had Micah Hudson come in and he talked about his experience going over to the Department of Commerce, and he's not on, but, wanted to publicly thank him. And then we had Aaron Penny and Paul, who's on right now, come on and talk about their experience in the state and local sector. So Paul, I wanted to say thanks for participating early and often. Thanks for taking on that segment that you did. And I didn't know if you wanted to take a second or anything and just highlight any other themes. I think the common theme was your attributes as a Marine, the leadership style, the work ethic, that's going to serve you well when you go out into these other environments, because it's easy to stand out. So Paul, I saw you came off camera. I don't want to take your thunder, but just if you could just kind of touch on and highlight some of the things that you talked about real quick.
Yeah, talking about that again, our Marine mentality going into the state and local government, they're not used to that. They're much slower paced, more old fashioned. They don't move forward very often, which we obviously do. And one of the main highlights that I wanted to really talk about is state and local is treated more so like private entities as well. You can negotiate salaries. You can negotiate vacation times. It's all part of your compensation package. So it's not just going for a GS job, like, hey, you're a GS1, you get this so many days of sick leave and this is your annual leave. So you can negotiate that as part of your whole total compensation package. But going back towards what we bring to the table as Marines is we are always pushing forward. I swear 90% of the other directors in my county, they're just happy where they're at. So if you do any type of innovation, moving forward, figuring out problems and just kind of going and getting it, you're going to stand out more than anyone else in that county. So just keep that in mind. That's all I had, Jim.
All right, cool. Hey, thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. And again, wanted to publicly thank you for participating early and often. Go ahead, Grant.
Hi, Paul. This is Grant. I wanted to ask, do your coworkers hate you for that?
No, good question, Grant. Thanks. No, they don't. I would say a lot of them actually appreciate it because they're not the ones doing it. So it was my idea of bringing forward kind of what we already do now in the Marine Corps side is we do digital signatures for everything. We don't wet sign anything if we don't have to anymore. So I brought that to the county, which saved tons of money on printing costs, paper, time, saved a ton of valuable time because they still did inter-office mail. So by helping them kind of reduce their admin time as directors and letting them to actually focus on what they needed to focus upon, they've actually appreciated that. But since, again, with my level, there's not much competition you're not going any higher. So you're a director, you're kind of already a director now. If you're going in as a little bit lower level, sure, there might be a little bit of animosity there, but it's business. If you're better, then you'll get promoted. That's just the way that I see it.
Oh yeah, good question, Grant. Thanks for asking. And that's a good to know, Paul, that standing out there and moving things forward is not going to upset everybody. Like you said, it's just like being anywhere where you might be competing a little bit. There might be some competitiveness. Like, yeah, sure, being a high performer sometimes is going to rub people the wrong way. If it does, then it's not necessarily that they're good for the agency or wherever the organization anyway. So, right.
Correct.
All right. Jerry, saw your hand go up.
Now, what Paul didn't tell you is he had a unique opportunity as well to be able to hire his dream team and groom his dream team to get to where he's at.
Okay.
I didn't want to toot my own horn. Thanks, Jerry. No, we had a business analyst. She was killing it, slaying it out there. And I noticed that. And within the first month, Jerry knows all about this. We talked about it. I got her promoted to deputy director because she was that good. And I didn't see why we would waste her talents or her time without putting her in a position where she can actually go forward and do great things.
And Jim, that directly contributed from the book Good to Great when I was talking to Paul.
Nice.
Hire the right people in the right spot.
Getting the right people on the bus. I like it.
Picture.
Good. All right, cool. No, hey, that's good information, Paul. I appreciate you sharing it. Appreciate you being a part of this, and hope you continue to be a part of it in the future because, like I said before, the idea is we're going to come back and revisit some of these later on in a few months as the audience grows. I think more and more people will be interested in hearing what their other options are. So particularly a point of interest there. So yeah, we had Aaron and Paul come on in October, and we're going to continue that theme of advertising other opportunities outside of defense financial management. And then November was fun. We talked about some recreational resources available to veterans. We talked about everything from PGA Hope and other, a golf resource and other outdoor activities that are available. We talked about discounts sites like GovX and VetTix, and we talked about some mental health resources, things like that. So, kind of rounded it out with with a beneficial, fun, and recreational theme. And then here we are in December, closing out, getting ready to go forward. So anybody from the IDP team got any notes from 24, any other highlights that I might have missed? All right, cool. And then anybody outside of the IDP team just got any questions or feedback on 24 before we move on to taking a look forward? Yeah, Dave.
Yeah, you talked about recreational veterans groups that help with recreation. There's a group called the Fallen Outdoors out there. Anybody that's familiar, any outdoorsmen that like hunting and fishing, they raffle off hunts. I got to go on a bear hunt last year, for example, and the year before that, I was able to go on a deer hunt, harvest the doe, and they also took my kids out on a dove hunt. So look at them out there. They're out throughout the whole country. In fact, I'm wearing one of their shirts right now. It's a good organization to know if you're an outdoorsman and a veteran.
No, that's awesome, Dave. Thanks for bringing that up. I think there's a couple outdoorsmen out here. But yeah, no, that's a great resource. And that's exactly, part of the network, right? Sharing ideas and stuff like that. Because we didn't have that on our list. But I know that would have piqued the interest of quite a few individuals on this call. Go ahead, Grant.
Hi, Dave. It's Grant. Can we get
Hi,
with
Grant.
you? And yeah, that I was looking for the link, and I wanted to get with you afterwards for some information so that this isn't the only place we ever talk about them. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, I think Jerry just put their link up on Facebook.
Yeah. Jerry's always fast with the links up in the.
I do. Like I got two screens ready, so when you guys are talking about the stuff, I'm digging in the background to put everything up for you guys.
As soon as you say something
possible.
on a call, Roy's going to be Googling it and figuring out if he can be
Chat
helpful.
GPT.
What's that, Greg?
Chat GPT doesn't exist. It's actually Roy at a computer.
Hey, Grant, don't take away my other business model concept. All right, Jesus, I got to keep that on the low key. Drew uses it often. He didn't know about it.
No, it's awesome. No, thanks for putting it out there, Roy. And again, Grant, to your point too, right? To make sure this isn't the only time we discuss this. When we get that list, it's always going to be a living, breathing document. So we'll have on our webpage, hey, here's resources when we discuss this, but then that stuff will all be out there for individuals to go back and look into. So, Dave, thanks for bringing that up. And we'll get that on our list. Abby, hopefully you're tracking and you can add that to the list that you built for the last call. All right. So just wanted to say, super appreciative, grateful for those of you that have been a part of this throughout 24. There were ups and downs, admittedly. We had some calls where we had 20 to 30 individuals, and we had some calls where it was just a couple of IDP people talking to each other. But we're not giving up, and I believe in it, and I feel like, this core group of individuals on here right now believe in it too. And I do see the purpose and usefulness of this. So we just got to get ourselves together, move forward in 24 with some enthusiasm and some structure, and keep making a push to get the word out. Because I think as this network grows, it'll become more and more valuable the bigger it gets. So keep spreading the good word. And in order to help you spread the word, we're doing our part and trying to put some more structure to it in 25. So last call, we did get some feedback. We took the last half of the November call, and we're like, all right, guys, help us get over the hump here. What can we do? And one of the things people said, they just said, hey, be more deliberate. Let us know what the topic's going to be, get the invites out earlier, and show us, put some structure to it, right? So what we're going to try to do is start off 25 with a discussion on checklists and the overall planning resources. So depending on which TRS you go to or where you go to look, you might find 10 different checklists on what are you supposed to do. Your command usually gives you a checklist. There's a Marine Corps order with a checklist in there, right? So we're going to kind of familiarize everybody with the checklist and where do you start, right? And then from there, we're going to kind of follow that checklist process and talk about what we consider and what we think are the hot topics, right? The ones that everybody wants to know. You can see that in February, we're going to jump right into VA. Jake already talked a little bit about that. Josh, I know you're on, and I know you've recently had some experience with VA. I don't know if you have a second and you want to come on here and talk a little bit about that. But I think VA is one of the prime topics that we got to get out of the way up first, right? It's one of the things that's front and center on everyone's mind, primarily because there's compensation tied to it, right? And then it's a complicated process. It's intimidating. some people have anxiety about like, well, should I really be getting 100%? You know, we got to help people get through that and understand like this is your time. Even understanding for me, it was a lot to even understand what it meant to get 100% rating. I'm like, I'm consider myself pretty healthy, right? Capable, but I got 100% rating and better understood that. So, you know, but there are potentially some hiccups, right? So, you know, Josh, I know you had a little bit of a delay with the communication between DFAS and I don't know if it was your VSO or Wounded Warrior, whoever did your stuff, but and if not tonight, we'll come back to you for some input on that. But the other thing about looking ahead and having the schedule out ahead of time is people can contact us. So while we have this schedule out here, please take a look at it. Share it with people who might be interested in it. But if you have something to add to one of these topics, we'd love for you to chime in and be like, hey, you know what, Jim, I really want to talk in the April session about your next career, right? Like somebody that's, you know, familiar with resumes and interviewing or has some good feedback on that stuff. So, and then we do have a plan for the second half of the year, but we're also considering, depending on how the first half goes, like I mentioned before, we may come back and revisit some of those. So we're leaving the second half of the year. We've got a plan there, but we're leaving a little bit flexible in case we want to cycle back because there's a huge influx of new participation and people miss some of those early topics. So we've got a lot of lifting to do on the IDP side to get this out there. We're going to launch something early in January, like an introductory video showing the 2025 outlook. But I think this part is really where I want to open it up to the group and try to get some feedback, you know. So just taking a look at those first 6 months, the topics, the theme, you know, and understanding that our biggest struggle right now and our main objective for 25 is to really increase the reach here, get more exposure, get more participation. So, you know, moving into kind of the open discussion feedback part of this now, you know, we're in the last half hour here, you know, really take a look at this. If you've got feedback, I'd love to hear from you right now or send us some note later on. And again, we'll send these slides out so that you all can have a look at them and know what 25 looks like. But that's where we're looking at. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this applies to everybody, but I like all this. All this makes a lot of sense. But I don't know how smart everybody is on how much the benefits for each state can matter, whether it's VA, whether it's taxing your pension, whether it's being exempt from property tax with a certain amount of VA. So, you know, if you got a guy or gal that wants to go home and live 20 minutes from their parents, you know, they may be dead set on where they want to go. But if you got a guy like me that's just like looking at the country and it's like, where can I make my money go the farthest and shoot big deer? Yeah, I don't know. But that might be a good one to like squeeze into here too early so people can kind of pick like, damn it, I want to live in, you know, the Gulf Coast of Florida because I like the beach, whatever it is.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, Jake. I appreciate that. That's really good. I think it does fit into that February, right? Because we're talking about maximizing your benefits, right? And so we to your point, we need to not just focus on the actual getting the rating and maximizing that part of the benefits, but how can you maximize it by making your dollar go the furthest, right? And I know, for example, where I'm at, you know, being 100% disabled, I don't pay vehicle registrations. I get a break on my property tax, but that varies from state to state, right? Like some states get a much larger property tax break than Ohio does. You know, things like getting hunting and fishing licenses is free in Ohio when you're disabled, right? So not just covering the process of getting through your medical appointments, working with a VSO, you know, all that stuff, but also once you've got there, how do you maximize it by picking your location, right? So no, I like that. I saw Abby give the thumbs up, so I know she wrote it down to add it. And again, we'll probably ping you like in January for some plan to come back and get some input from you. So,
yep, sounds good.
Yeah, and that's great. That's a great look forward and kind of think about, you know, because there's so much to consider. Some people might not even have time to add that to their you know, to their decision criteria. All right, Jake, thanks for hopping, man.
Hey, Jim, this is Grant. I'm not sure exactly what April means, but one topic that I think at some point would be good would be entrepreneurship. If, you know, you've done it, if Jake's interested in it, I think at one point, Yasser, you've done it or you're still doing it. There might be business owners that we don't even know about but there's definitely going to be somebody who's interested in starting one.
Yeah, no, that's a great plan, Grant. A great point. So yeah, the April one, your next career starts here. That would actually probably be the perfect fit for entrepreneurship because it's talking about career tracks and career enhancement, right? Like, yeah, you've got the check in the box things like, okay, resume, interview skills, build your LinkedIn page, but also looking at those tracks, right? Like what is your chosen track and how, if your next career starts here, what is it, right? Is it contracting? Is it GS? And how do you prepare for each one of those? And if it's entrepreneurship, how do you prepare for that, right? So we'll weave that in, Grant, because I do think it's a great topic, and we'll see if it's too much to put in to April or if we can put it in somewhere else or make it its own topic. Yeah, that's a good
or even just a Q&A opportunity.
Yeah, for
See
sure.
where it goes.
Yeah, no, good. Okay, cool. Anybody else taking a look at the topics here, the list here? Anything that you would want to see on there or have added in or expanded on? All right. And then, like I said, in the second half of the year, we've got another list, things that we want to get to and talk about at some point, or weave into one of the earlier months. But just give you a chance to look over this. Go ahead, Dave.
Something I might like to see, especially, a lot of the Marines I know are getting out right now. And what is the demand for financial managers going to be in the future? Is there going to be a downtick, with some companies going away and other companies buying other companies? Or am I going to have to start telling them to look at other professions potentially? Over.
Yeah, that's a great topic. And if you remember when I was discussing earlier our 24, so going back to this slide, that's really what we talked about a lot in August this year. And I think you're right. I think we need to talk about that again, and we probably need to bring that up often, maybe at the end of each call or every other call to talk about it, because reading the market is difficult. There's a lot changing politically. There's a lot changing in the structure of the market, like companies, like you mentioned, being bought and here and there. But I'll say, I personally think it looks favorable. And here in the next couple minutes, we can turn to that a little bit in the open discussion part here at the end. But that's a great one, Dan, or Dave, and I appreciate it. And we'll definitely get that on the topic list and somewhere here early. We'll probably add it in January because you brought it up, and it's really a good time to get it out front and then talk to it again throughout the year, because that is a really relevant topic. It's probably a lot of front of a lot of people's minds. So, all right. Anything else in July to December? Okay. All right. IDP team, did I miss anything? Anything that you guys want to add? All right, so going into the open topic discussion or the end of it, first I just wanted to say thanks everybody for hopping on. Last minute plug one more time. Help us spread the word, help us get this going. This is probably the best part here, the open discussion. So I appreciate you bearing with me through the presentation part of it, getting through the slides, and thanks to those that spoke up and added and asked questions. So here we get an open discussion, and Dan, I keep calling you Dan because I want to say Dan Daly, right? Like. Dave, I'll just give you my feedback right now and my assessment of it, because we've actually been talking about that and our plans for 25 and beyond. Like, what does this mean? The administration change and Department of Government Efficiency and the audit push for 28. I mean, my assessment of the market is we're more relevant than ever. And any increased added pressure for efficiencies and things like that, that's just going to make fiscal stewardship more important, and I think make our job more important, right? So I think particularly for financial managers, there's a lot of promise there. Now, as far as the changing landscape, companies morphing and things like that, I mean, there are smaller versions of, the teams that you're used to hearing. And I mean, I'm not, okay, let's use a specific example, right? Like for a lot of us as Marines, it was like a career progression. Like you get promoted to Master Sergeant, you get promoted to Chief Warrant Officer, and you get promoted to Aeon, right? Like okay, is that going away? No, it's not. That company still exists, and there's still going to be a demand there. And there's smaller companies like IDP and Oxbow and Focus and Montcure that are popping up, and they're going to fill that gap or that need both on the client side and on the employment side. So, that's my interpretation. I'd love to hear from some others on the call of what your experience or what your analysis of the market is at this time, but that's what I think, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Shareholders require constant growth, so mergers and acquisition are inherent to our industry, and they're always going to happen. It's part of why it's in everyone's interest to cultivate a network of the next level of entrepreneurs that are going to come in and start the next generation of businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's one of the things that IDP's on track for, right? But yeah, Dave, keep ask questions if there's things that happen, like we said at the method part of the brief earlier, like the idea is let's get familiar on this call, and then throughout the month, if something happens and you want to hear, we'll have that forum where you can put questions out to this group, because we are also going to look to involve some industry partners later on as well. We're not going to just let IDP be the only company on here and the only company individuals get exposure to. So you'll get lots of good input from other players in the game as well.
And even taking that a step further, if there's somebody specific or an industry specific you want to get exposure to, we all have networks outside of the Marine Corps as well. So if you're like, I want to go do actuarial sciences for commercial insurance, I'm going to call you a nerd, but we've got 2 guys, we'll get you hooked up. So, and that goes for all your young enlisted members who are doing one tour and getting out too. And if they really want to go be a lineman in North Carolina, cool, share that. We'll get the word out.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it, Drew.
Dave, one thing that when I was on active duty, I probably had a misconception that industry was a lot more cutthroat. And one thing that I've learned is everybody is a teaming partner first. And you've got to work really hard at being a jerk to become a competitor to somebody. So I just throw that out there from a competitor or teaming standpoint. Everybody, whether they've got 10,000 employees or 1, we're all in the same place trying to make the same buck.
Yeah.
It's good advice. Thanks, Grant.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Grant. And I mean, think about in just the past week, Dave and some of the other guys that's still in the Marine Corps on the call, like in the past week, I've had conversations with multiple companies, whether it's, Rick Pauley, who's at Lynch now, or Bill Miller, who's with a company, KGS now, or Mike Zampruk, who's over at Navaid. I mean, the Marine Corps community is out there, and those guys are all partners. And yeah, like competimates is a fun word that gets thrown around, right? But I mean, like Grant said, the relationships, and I was very, I was very relieved to come out into the industry and find that out, because it's not cutthroat at all, and then the relationships are still strong. And, when people say, hey man, let me know if I can do something to help you, I haven't received a cold response from anybody that I served with that's out here in the industry now, and a lot of times, like Grant said, it's over under teaming agreements, responding to the same requirements and things like that. So, I see lots of opportunity. I see lots of relevance for our MOS and our community. And it's a fun space to operate in, honestly. I'm having a ton of fun doing it this year, and I'm excited for next year. So
for financial managers, what kind of education or qualifications are you looking for so that I can pass that information down to like some of my instructors and Marines? Over.
Yeah. Anybody else from IDP want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, I threw thumbs up on that. This is one that I've been kind of vocalizing to some personnel out here on the West Coast. And so Dave, a lot of people right now, and we can definitely have talks offline, but the one thing that we've seen across the board, and even when we did our last virtual happy hour on this topic in August, a lot of the things that people or Marines need to realize is that your military experience is only going to take you through X amount of doors. So it might get you through the first or second door, and it might get you that business or financial analyst one or two. But then having things like the CDFM, having things like project management, having things like a bachelor in a related financial financial area, those are the things that are going to get you from that level 2 to that level 4 SME type billet, right? Now, this with that being said, I think this is what leaders right now should be investing, helping their young Marines invest in, right? I think sometimes we get wrapped up and we're like, oh, that's your DODFM, like that's what you need, and you're a great Marine, a great rep, and all of that. And the Marines think like, oh, like I'm good, and then they all come out and they're like, well, I have my DODFM and 4 years of financial management. I should be able to land a job making X amount of money, and that's where it's like you've been misinformed or you've been misled, right? Like you need to also do some of these things on your own, because that's what's going to pay the dividends in the future. So things like that is what we're seeing. Like, and that's if you want to stay in the financial management realm, right? Obviously, if you want to go do, cybersecurity or other things, then that's where you get your data analytics and you get your cybersecurity and you get there's a CompTIA and you get all those other type of certifications to fit in those fields. But for financial management, that's what we're seeing. That's going to get you those higher LCAT rates to be able to kind of do what you want to, make what you're hoping to make. Hopefully that answers your question, but we can definitely have some more chats about this offline.
I appreciate it, Lewis. Just because I get a chance to address every student that comes through right now. And one of the things I do talk about is education and qualifications. And a lot of them, they are only going to do 4 years and get out. So I think it's good that they get that up front at the schoolhouse. Over.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're at the perfect place where you can plant that seed, right? Before they hit that fleet, and it's just a matter of maybe sharing that type of information with the rest of the fields or the commands that they're going to say like, hey, like this person's interested in this, like please try to help him or her continue on that path, just in case you try, they only do 4. Like, it's one of those things that I used to tell Marines back when I was so active. I was like, you need to be preparing to get out like day one, because you just never know if you're going to do 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, whatever, you know what I mean? So prepare to get out as if you're doing 4. So what can I get out of the Marine Corps or whatever service you're in within the first 4 years? I need to get my degree. Great. What do I need to do to get on track? CDFM, same things. Like we need to start providing the opportunities and start investing in the Marines' future, and not just
I agree.
I need you to do duty.
I do think they're only going to get so far in the Marine Corps, and there's so many different education opportunities out there that could really make you better in this field. And I know we've had a few discussions about that before, Lewis. I appreciate it. Thanks, Lewis.
Of course, brother. Anytime.
Yeah, Paul, I saw your hand go up, man. What you got some stuff to add from recent experience?
Hey, yeah. So sorry, I've been a little quiet on this call. I'm out in the parking lot of my daughter's travel volleyball practice. These things drag on for like 3 hours, so figured I'd try to hop on nonetheless. But no, I appreciated Dave's question, because I was thinking the same thing. But I guess as we circle back to potential future topics, I was thinking a little more broad stroke as far as some of the other individuals you've had from different industries, and maybe some of the certifications and things we might have readily available, and how they might translate, like how one may translate to one and maybe less in another sort of field. And like taking it to like Cool and US Map, potentially different degree programs or different, even if there's like lesser reputable institutions of learning, those sort of things that I think might all be good takeaways if there was like a consensus from, state, local level or corporate world, I guess kind of a combination thereof.
So you're talking about the relevance of degrees vary from industry to industry, and does it matter if you got a web-based university degree or a freak, what I mean, like a Clemson or whatever. Like, so yeah, no, I think that's a good point, Paul. To go back and talk about, to Dave's question, right? Like, what are the certifications? But then to your point, like, and then how are they relevant? Where are they the most relevant? Where are they making the most competitive? I go back to a phrase that we've used on previous calls, and we got to start incorporating again, but it's be eligible and be competitive, right? Like, so for us as Marines, we're used to that. Like, you got to get corporal's course done to be eligible for sergeant, but then how do you become even more competitive by having a higher PFT, higher rifle score, right? Like, in this industry, it's the same. Like, a lot of what Lou was talking about is first you got to be eligible for that LCAT that you're going after, right? Like, if it's 10 years experience with a bachelor's, with PMP, you got to have all those things to be eligible. Then you got to have other things to make you competitive and actually land the spot, right? And one of the things, too, that I think is important to discuss is, like, what else in that be competitive part of it, what's complementary, right? Like, yeah, we're all financial managers. We're all going to get CDFM, DODFM, maybe some of us will get PMP. But, Yasser, with you being on, and sorry to put you on the spot, but, like, I think I've read your resume a couple times, and I know, like, you have a unique skill set in, I think, like data analysts, and things like that, and presenting data, like those are skill sets that are very complementary, Paul and Dave. Like, so now you're a financial manager, but you also can manipulate systems. So, yes, I don't know if you got anything to add, or you want to make me sound a little smarter and back me up here, but I know you've been in the finance management industry, but you've got some unique skills as well, right?
Yeah, thank you. And my background's a little bit unique. I've sort of navigated those same struggles throughout the years as well, especially transitioning from a non-financial management MOS into a financial management corporate world. So some of those things, such as data analytics, as Jim mentioned, it helped sort of bridge that gap for me. Depending really, as Lou mentioned as well, what are the requirements for the specific LCAT or position that you're looking to fill within a specific company. For me, again, not as much breadth and depth as this room holds in terms of experience, but I have tried to pursue things that are complementary to, number one, what my passion is. So if I'm looking to solve problems using data, and I like sort of that environment where data modeling, data analytics, this new AI and, predictive modeling, things like that. So that's what I'm trying to complement my business background with. So a lot of great takeaways in this meeting. I don't want to necessarily lead you in the wrong direction, but for me personally, what I wanted to do was try to find micro-credentialing, and micro-credentialing through a number of different organizations are widely more available now than they have ever been. So you could get some really good content from very reputable institutions at a very nominal to complimentary fee, especially if you're still serving. So that was my approach, is try to complement my educational background and some of the things that I did in the Marine Corps with some of the new technologies and the new platforms that are available through the micro-credentialing piece. I hope that helps, and I hope that answered your question, Jim. Thank you.
No, yeah, sir. I mean, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing. And the term micro-credentialing and you bringing up that point, I mean, you may have just found yourself a spot on a future virtual happy hour leading the discussion in micro. No, I'm just kidding. But no, that's interesting. And again, like if you've got resources and stuff, please share them, because I'd love to see a list of, but circling back to the original question from Dave, I think that those are some of the most valuable things that financial managers can do, is those complementary skill sets, the certifications that distinguish you from every other financial manager. Like, yeah, you can look at a data set and look at UMTs, but can you manipulate that data and present it and make it tell a story, a data visualization? Like, that's a really useful skill set, right? Like, people want to see dashboards and want to know the data. What story is that data telling, right? That financial managers manipulate all the time. Grant, I see your hand up, but Roy's been sitting on his hands for a couple minutes, so let me get to him, and then. But yeah, thanks, Yasser. I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, Dave. what we've seen come through here is they've been looking at like the flavor of the weeks for process improvements. Scrum Agile is the new Lean Six Sigma. Microsoft application certifications. Who would have thought that Microsoft Excel would be a briefing platform over PowerPoint in the area I work in? And then it depends on the career path that you want to go. If you want to stay within the DoD, you need to learn Advana, Databrick building, that to leverage the tools that they have there. Power BI is another one too that like DFAS uses, and then DoD has the Advana platform, Jupyter platform subsets within there. So it depends on the career path they want to take. Like I said, Yasser hit the micro credentialing platform is really where it's at. But anything and everything that can make you better is like degree first, micro credentialing, CDFM, CMA, CPA. You know, that's the big long term goals. But yeah, once you get that degree under your belt, start hitting the any micro credentials you have. I'd recommend Microsoft Office being the first, and then branching out to data analytics, whatever you can get your hands on for data analytics.
Yeah, no, thanks, Roy. Good input. And being in a unique work environment over there, you're seeing a very high level demand for transferring those big data sets you're dealing with, the information you're dealing with at the DFAS build, the Don DFAS build, and then putting that into something that Scott can then translate and interpret. I mean, what Roy's dealing with is getting briefed at, you know, the high SES level, the Don ASN level and stuff. And so, you know, that skill to be able to take that data and put it in a concise way, have it paint a picture for SES and executive consumption. That's a unique skill in itself, right? So thanks for highlighting that, Roy. Grant, your hand went down, but I'm not going to let you slide away unless Roy stole your thunder and said everything you were going to say.
No, but I don't want to beat the dead horse too much, but okay. I want to throw in, Dave, that I'll never poo-poo education. I think it's important. It took me 15 years of grinding at night and on the weekends and things to finally get the piece of paper that said I had a 4-year degree. But I wanted to also point out that reading the tea leaves, I think that there are SESs that have already just come right out and say it, that one of their priorities is to try to eliminate unnecessary education requirements to LCATs for federal contracting. And largely, the industry seems to already, or the government in the areas that we play in, have already adopted traditionally LCATs that allow for like 4-year degree or 4 years of additional experience. So I'm going to be the one that says what's really valuable. And Paul, to your question, like what's really valuable? Industry level certifications are always good, right? Nobody cares that you have a McMap black belt with 2 red tabs. But industry certifications do matter. And sometimes those can be obtained way faster than a 4-year degree. So it's not a sales pitch for SDFM to say, oh, get your CDFM, but that can carry almost equal weight in some scenarios, and it only took 6 weeks to earn. Over.
Yeah, Grant, that was really pointed at Jim right there.
Yeah,
for the McMap. We like
red
that.
Tab?
Yep.
I'm fucking wearing my McMap out with 2 red tabs right now, Grant. So no.
I was hoping to see it.
I was waiting for the
to
knife
stand
hands.
up and like show them the tabs and like come stand by.
But hey, what Grant said about that CDFM, we've seen this a couple times. The requirement on the LCAT is either CDFM or CPA. One of these takes 6 weeks to get. The other one takes months and has a 51% pass rate. You do the math on what's economically more viable. I think you can make some pretty informed decisions there.
Yes.
The other thing I'll point out is that we've never, in my experience, 6 years so far on this side, I've never encountered an experience where we had the right candidate and education was the barrier. If they were really fucking good at something, then it works, right? Magic. The government can waive things, you know, it just happens. So the other thing I would tell people is pick something to everybody else's point, pick something that's new and be the first, right? Like if you want to stand out, don't run away from Advana because nobody understands it. go be the expert on Advana, and that becomes extremely valuable and opens a lot of doors.
So you're saying that maybe a degree in underwater basket weaving isn't a good idea?
No, look, if that's your passion, then I would say pursue it, because something's got to satisfy us, right? And it's not going to be your employment, clearly, because you decided to get a degree in basket weaving. No, the truth is, if I got $1 for every person that I've worked with who has a fucking degree in psychology, I would be rich. I would retire. Like it doesn't really matter. Sometimes the government or the LCAT will say must be a business related field like finance, blah, blah, blah. But like I said, oftentimes it's just a check in the box. Or when you go back and press the government, they'll be like, oh shit, I didn't even know that was in there. Yeah, what do you want it to say? And that's not to say there aren't scenarios that are challenging, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, the education is a check in the box, but having a skill set that is in high demand and low density, the first through the gate. Who is an expert on DAI in the Marine Corps? Anybody that you point to, I know they only have a maximum of like 3 years experience. So that tells you how far away you are from like the person who could know the possible most. So when things are new, it's the easiest to climb that mountain.
Yeah. And,
yeah, absolutely.
One thing I want to add is a concept that we've talked about before too. I'm a big believer that if you, and please, Dave, share this with Marines that are still on active duty, right? The reputation you build for yourself while you're on active duty is far more important than any quals. I use this phrase: if you're counting on your resume to land you the job, you've not networked properly, you've not built a good reputation. Resume should be a formality at the end of the day, because you've participated in this happy hour and you know enough people out there and your reputation precedes you that people are like, hey man, I've got an opening for you. Just need your resume as a formality, right? Like get it done, right? Like do as good as you can while you're still on active duty, build a reputation, be a high performer, because then those things like Grant mentioned, like, oh, for this LCAT, you're supposed to have let's say you've got a young hard charging enlisted Marine that hasn't had time to get a degree, but they're a freaking rock star, right? And it's like, oh, well, you're supposed to have it. The company's employee is going to find a way around getting that degree requirement for the LCAT, right? Or they're going to find a way to make it happen. So everything that everybody else said is absolutely 100% true. But it's that reputation, it's that network, and it's building your brand that's really going to carry you across that and make you the type of individual that's in high demand, where people are going to go around those arbitrary restrictions to get you into the position that you want. So I would say that's probably one of the most important lessons to share with the young Marines or those that are nearing transition,
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. No, it's been a great discussion. I do want to acknowledge we're a little bit past, it's 15 minutes past. I'm sure Brandon has to go chase deer off his property or wrangle his horses out there in Missouri, and other people got exciting things to do. Brandon, do you have anything to share with the group before you head off to your new big home? All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Weapons of opportunity, Jim. Weapons of opportunity.
Thanks. See you later, guys.
Yeah, I got a Mocha on the wall back here.
Thank you all. Appreciate the invite.
Thanks, Asher.
Hey, Merry Christmas.